In the days when the children of Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, a new king arose over Egypt who knew not Joseph. And this Pharaoh looked upon the people of Israel and saw that they were many and strong. Fear filled his heart, for he said within himself, "Behold, the people of the children of Israel are greater and mightier than we. If war should arise, they may join with our enemies and rise against us." The sun blazed upon the land of Goshen, and the sweat of countless slaves darkened the dust. Pharaoh's heart, once made of flesh, began to harden like the very stones his slaves laid each day. So Pharaoh set taskmasters over them to afflict them with heavy burdens. Day by day, the Israelites labored under the burning sun, making bricks, building cities of stone, working in fields until their backs bent and their hands bled. Yet the more they were afflicted, the more they multiplied, and Pharaoh's fear grew greater. The cries of the weary echoed across the land, mingled with the crack of whips. But heaven heard every sound that men thought forgotten beneath the roar of Egypt's might. Then Pharaoh spoke with cruelty and commanded all his people, saying, "Every son that is born to the Hebrews shall be cast into the river, and every daughter shall be spared." The sound of weeping filled the land, and the cries of mothers rose up to heaven. But though the hearts of men were filled with evil, the hand of the Lord was still at work. The Nile, which Pharaoh claimed as his god, would soon become the cradle of God's plan. For even in the midst of darkness, divine mercy prepared a light to rise. Among the children of Israel, there was a man from the tribe of Levi, and he took a wife of his own tribe. In due time, she bore a son, a beautiful and healthy child. When she looked upon him, she saw that he was fair and goodly, and her heart was moved with great love. She hid him in her home, concealing him from Pharaoh's soldiers for 3 months. Each heartbeat was a prayer, each whisper a plea to heaven to keep him unseen. The mother's faith stood like a wall of fire between her child and death. But as the child grew, his cries could no longer be hidden. The mother's heart trembled with fear, yet her faith in God remained strong. So she made a plan born of love and trust. She took reeds from the riverbank and wove a basket, sealing it with tar and pitch so that no water could enter. When it was finished, she placed her child within, wrapped in soft cloth, and laid the basket among the reeds by the river's edge. The air was still, heavy with silence, as though creation itself held its breath. Angels unseen watched over the fragile vessel of destiny. The river was calm, and the reeds swayed gently in the wind. The mother stood for a moment, her eyes filled with tears, her lips whispering a prayer. "O Lord my God," she said, "you gave me this child. Into your hands I give him back. Guard him upon the waters. Let not the river take him, but let your will be done." Her tears fell upon the river like offerings of faith. In her surrender, God's miracle began to move upon the current. Then she stepped away, her heart heavy yet full of faith, and watched as the little basket rocked gently upon the river's current. Her steps faltered as she turned back once more, memorizing the sight of her son upon the waters. The river carried both her sorrow and her hope into the unknown. For sometimes, faith must release what it loves most into the hands of God. But nearby stood Miriam, the child's sister, watching from a distance. She did not turn away. Her young heart was full of courage, her eyes following the basket as it drifted through the reeds. The sun shone upon the water, and the hand of God guided every ripple and wave. She watched the river bend like a path drawn by heaven itself. Though small in years, Miriam's heart was bold with purpose. In that very hour, the daughter of Pharaoh came down to the river to bathe, and her maidens walked along the water's edge. Suddenly, she saw the basket among the reeds and sent her servant to fetch it. When she opened it, the child was there, and he wept. The princess looked upon him, and compassion filled her heart. "This is one of the Hebrew children," she said softly. The gentle sound of the infant's cry broke the silence of Egypt's sin. In that moment, mercy entered the house of Pharaoh. Though her father Pharaoh had decreed death for every Hebrew boy, her heart was moved with mercy. She could not cast the child away. Love overcame fear, and pity overcame command. She lifted the baby into her arms, and the cries of the child quieted as though he knew he was safe. Around them, the river seemed to still, honoring the holy act of compassion. In her embrace, a divine purpose found its earthly vessel. Then Miriam, who had been watching, came forward with courage and said, "Shall I go and call a nurse from among the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee?" The princess nodded, and Miriam hastened away. She ran to bring the child's own mother. Her feet barely touched the ground as joy and faith carried her forward. Every heartbeat was a drum of promise, echoing heaven's plan unfolding before her eyes. When the mother came, the princess said to her, "Take this child and nurse him for me, and I will give thee wages." And so, by the power and mercy of God, the child who had been set upon the river to escape death was given back into his mother's arms. She cared for him and raised him until he was old enough to dwell in Pharaoh's house. What man could plan such a wonder, but God alone? The tears once shed in sorrow were now tears of awe and thanksgiving. When the time came, the child was brought to the princess, and she named him Moses, saying, "Because I drew him out of the water." The name became a prophecy, for one day he too would draw a nation out from the depths of bondage. The halls of Egypt echoed with his laughter, unaware that deliverance was being raised in their midst. The Lord hides his wonders in plain sight, that the proud may not see until his time is revealed. Thus, the child, who was born under the shadow of Pharaoh's cruelty, was raised in the courts of Egypt, among princes and scholars. He was taught the wisdom of the Egyptians and learned the speech of kings. Yet though he wore fine garments and ate from golden tables, he never forgot the people from whom he came. The songs of his mother still lingered in his dreams, calling him back to the promise of God. His heart was divided between two worlds, Egypt's throne and Israel's cry. For even in the palace of Pharaoh, the Spirit of the Lord watched over him. God was shaping him, molding him for a great purpose, to become the deliverer of his people. He was not born to be a prince, but to be a prophet. Every lesson, every trial, every silence was preparing him for a voice that would one day shake empires. Years passed, and Moses grew strong in wisdom and spirit. But before he could lead a nation, he had to walk with God alone. The palace had taught him power. The desert would teach him faith. There, in solitude, he would hear the voice that thundered from the burning bush. It all began with a mother's faith, a sister's courage, and a princess's kindness. From the reeds of the Nile, God began writing a story no kingdom could erase. From a cradle to a calling, every step was guided by his unseen hand. The child who once floated on the waters would one day part them with a staff in his hand. The one who cried in weakness would speak with heaven's authority. "Let my people go." From the waters of the Nile to the fire of Sinai, God turned tears into triumph and sorrow into song. His promises never fail. His love never ends. For he is the same, yesterday, today, and forever. The deliverer who saves.